guys, this is Lena from your TSR Guide. Welcome to my channel. So a little intro, I got through the Dietitian Skills Recognition process by Dietitians Australia last year and passed the 2 exams at first attempt, yay! But honestly, it was not an easy process. I felt lost, overwhelmed, mentally and physically drained. And if you're going through it, I wish you the best of luck. Ever since I got through that process, I've been wanting to create a little platform where I can connect with people that are going through it and offer assistance, help, guidance, wherever I can. So I guess that's what my channel is going to be about. And I'd like to start it with some tips on how I got through the theoretical exam. Now, what works for me doesn't necessarily have to work for you. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. My first tip would be to have a plan with revision checklists. So as you know, the exam revolves around 3 domains: clinical, food service management, and public health nutrition. So I would recommend allocating a certain number of weeks for each domain and not going to the next domain until you're done with that certain domain, because it would be so overwhelming if they were overlapping and you were doing some of this and some of that. And I would recommend starting with the domain where you feel the weakest. So a lot of people start off with clinical because it's the bulkiest and half of the exam revolves around clinical. For some reason, I started with public health nutrition. I just felt like there would probably be a lot to learn in terms of like new information relating to Australian public health nutrition, and there was quite a lot to learn, but I think I should have started with clinical. But again, whatever works for you. And my next point is to make a revision checklist for each domain. What I mean by that is once you've gathered the topics that are commonly asked for each domain, compile them into a checklist, which I've done and I'll share if you guys are interested. And when you're revising like 1 week or 2 weeks before the exam, it's so much easier to study that way and you're just crossing things off that checklist just because the material is so huge, and that's just one of the things that helps me feel less overwhelmed. My next tip would be to understand the format and the scope of the exam. This is so important because it could help you, prevent you from going through endless like textbooks and reading endless information that's not even asked. So they're not asking you like biochemistry, metabolism stuff that you took in first year of nutrition, and they're not going to ask you advanced dietetics and stuff that is, you know, not graduate level. It's pitched at a new graduate level. It's really important to know that. Yeah, so one more thing is that some random things pop up. So for example, a lot of stuff regarding public health nutrition, like health charters and stuff that I never really studied. So that's why it's really important to know the scope of the exam and the commonly asked topics, just because even if you have the highest GPA graduating from uni in your country, there's a lot of new things to understand when you're applying it to this exam. One of them was Aboriginal health, which I never really studied until I came here. Third point would be to solve case studies on clinical nutrition, because clinical was half the exam and all of the questions revolved around a case study. There wasn't a single one that wasn't attached to a case study. And they weren't straightforward at all. They were the type of questions where all the options could be right, and you really had to think and prioritize your answers. They're testing how you can think critically, they're testing how you can think outside of the box. They're really testing your abilities as a dietitian. So my tip would be to solve case studies and not just memorize information, just know how to apply it. That brings me to my next point, which is to solve questions. It's a bit similar to my previous point, but this was just a way to feel like I am actually retaining the information, actually studying, testing my progress, because Dietitians Australia doesn't really have many sample questions on their website. They only have one document, and it's like very, very minimal questions, which I would recommend you go through, of course. But when you're studying and you just don't know if you're actually retaining information, it's really important that you find a way to test yourself. One of the things I did was that I solved the questions to the American dietitian exam, and only the clinical ones, because it helped me feel like I am doing something, I am memorizing, and it boosted my confidence, which made a huge difference. And another thing I did was I downloaded the app Quizlet, and I solved their questions on Krause's nutrition book. I solved some of them, and some of them were too detailed, I just skipped them. But just to feel like you're going somewhere, because it is a very tricky process where you're just studying and reading, but you're not actually sure if you're doing anything right. So I would recommend finding a way to test yourself, and mine was those two things. My next point would be to be confident in your abilities and remember that you are a dietitian, and change your mindset towards the exam. This is something that I wish I did when I was studying for my theoretical. I started doing it when I was studying for my oral exam, but when I was studying for my theoretical exam, I was just so done with the fact that I had to do an exam and go through so much information and read so much and go through that really scary process. But when you shift your mindset towards thinking that no, this process can actually empower me and I am learning so much and it will help me throughout my career and my qualifications will be just as strong and just as good as an Australian degree, it changes everything. It's really true, and I really felt it because when I was, before my exam, I was working as a volunteer dietitian. And after I passed my exam and got my credentials, I really felt a boost in my confidence and the fact that I am aware of the Australian dietetic system, and it really empowered me. So changing your mindset could make a big difference. My last point, this is a bit general, but on the day of the exam, make sure you get a good night's sleep before and make sure you have a good breakfast, because it is a long, very long draining exam. You want to be at the top of your game. And yeah, oh, also don't spend too much time on each question because it's a very, very long exam. And if you spend too much brain power on one question, it's going to hinder your ability to think on the next one. So just choose whatever answer you might think is the best one and mark that question that you're not sure of it, because you can do that since it's an online exam. And then if you have time, you'll go back to it. I had a couple of questions, actually a lot of questions, where I wasn't sure of the answer. So I would just choose the most probable one and I'd mark it that I'm not sure. And then at the end of the exam, I actually didn't have time to go back to them. So just, yeah, make sure you do mark it, but don't spend too much time on each question. And that wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. Let me know if you guys want any content regarding like certain information, and stay tuned for some more videos. Bye!